Before I begin, I'm just going to quickly check in, because that seems to be the done thing for me nowadays. Hi, my name is Ewan. I've been in recovery for over 10 years from addiction to heroin and Valium, but now I'm a peer support worker with Hillcrest Futures based in Perth Prison and also study on the Fine Art MFA course at DJCAD. The institutional cycle is a reference to the journey of my life and tells a story about my education, addiction, recovery, and the cyclical nature of progressing from one institution to the next, in a manner that would have Michel Foucault having a wet dream. From creating art and passing exams at school, to getting qualifications and creating an art portfolio in prison, which finally got me into college, the final destination was going to be the here and now, and at both ends of the spectrum. Studying at university and working in recovery to help others like myself. The accompanying image is a painting of my daughter Keris, aged 3, and it was my first painting on canvas. It was completed in 2008 at HMP Perth's Fife College Education Centre. Scotch Tape, Scotch Homelessness was an ephemeral work which sought to raise awareness about the rising levels of homelessness in Scotland, particularly in Dundee, because at the time myself and my family were living in temporary accommodation after being evicted from a previous home due to rising rent arrears, so the subject obviously appealed to my curiosities. The work was installed at the bottom of the Perth Road, outside the empty bank, and was reported missing to the Evening Telegraph, who graciously capped the story for my documentation and general foundation year. Furthermore, it is also a good example of my practice as a whole, because the work I create is done so by researching a specific area of interest that has had a personal impact on my life, and in doing so is an attempt to understand why these things are happening, why I am the way I am, how it all fits together, and how then I could use this to process it creatively. It's a bit like self-therapy in a nutshell. The statistics you can see are from 2002, so these are the current statistics and have went up slightly, so it's maybe worth revisiting this in the future. Dundee's Little Helper. Valium and Addiction, Dundee's other V&A. So this is up there on the highlight reel for my undergrad art school days, and probably the project I was most proud of, because Dundee is known as the drug death capital of Europe, and at the time of the V&A opening, the issue was making national headlines, and there was a great disparity in the opinions held by Dundonians, so you can say from day one I was gunning for them. The final piece of the jigsaw fell into place when the connection between Nan Goldin's protests against the Sackler Trust, who were behind the drug OxyContin that was causing the opioid drug death crisis in America. They had also made their original fortune from the creation and promotion of diazepam, also known as Valium or Mother's Little Helpers, which were present in 80% of Scottish drug deaths in 2018. Better still, the Sacklers had also donated £500,000 to the V&A Dundee. It was perfect, you couldn't make that up. So I created a series of large diazepam tablets and one extra special large pill to be clandestinely installed in the Scottish Design Gallery, and the smaller ones then installed over at the local over-prescribing authority, which was known as DPC. So, Brexit. I'm sure you've probably heard about what happened, so I'll just cut to the chase. Over the period from when it was first decided to when it actually happened, it was obviously a hot topic. And honestly tried to be impartial on the matter, but by now you'll have probably realised I'm about as subtle as a brick in the teeth. So I held my own election, which was open to all Europeans at the art school, and had a return of 100% no votes. During this time I also made prints and collages that featured opinions and negative impacts it would have on Britain, and focused on the clowns that were behind it. The rotten pig you see at the bottom was planned to be displayed on a dinner table draped with a Union Jack, the butcher's apron, and a tea set in an attempt to display the decaying state of the Union and also a shady reference to an ex-Prime Minister. but the health and safety police at the art school decided it was unsuitable for campus, so was subsequently stolen by a fox from its final location during the first lockdown. The new normal was created during the initial phases of the lockdowns during the pandemic, and as you could probably tell from the images, I'd lost my mind ever so slightly. But as you'll see in a few slides, it was the beginning of a larger process in understanding the political and economic transgressions that were presenting themselves during this time. It was also the first time I'd cracked onto the old Photoshop, because we had free access and were stuck in the house all the time. And once it got going, you could see I had a bit of fun exploring the similarities between the Spanish flu outbreak and the coronavirus outbreak, the political upheaval, public disorders, wars, protests and vaccines. Back then it saw the beginnings of the Dada movement, so it was quite rightly ironic that Dada was now the perfect response to the craziness of what was happening these days. Although in the end it resulted with a triptych of mixed media collages inspired by the digital versions. The second period of lockdown saw me progressing from digital collage to collage animations, using After Effects and Premiere, to 3D environment building in Blender, before learning how to write computer code to create generative art. By the time I got back to 4th year, I honestly thought my future was in cyber, just like the advert said. I thought I was going to have to be a programmer, but thankfully by creating art again it cleansed my mind. Lastly, the timing was also in tandem with the NFT boom, so my interest had peaked, and along with the pandemic became the basis for my dissertation, An Artist's Perspective of Posthumanism and AI. Pandemia. What can I say? In all honesty, it felt like closure on numerous things. Not only because it was the end of an art school era, it was the final response to a pandemic that had caused massive disruption worldwide, and reaching this point felt like an achievement in spite of all this. So to draw a line under it was a good feeling. Nearly 2.5 years of research went into the writing of my dissertation and the planning for the final project. In the end, there was only one conclusion. No matter what crises, disasters, wars, natural catastrophes, or international health threats, someone's always going to profit. And weirdly enough, the further we're pushed towards the digital future, it's the big tech giants who seem to hold all the cards. And these are the same companies that are driving our culture towards posthumanism, a technological singularity that will challenge our very humanity and beliefs of civilization. The outcome was a lo-fi installation that was handmade, hand-carved, hand-painted. Basically, anything I could achieve without technology was my aim, and it served as a detox from the digital art that had me doubting my faith as an artist, so getting back to basics was bliss. Writing had become a big part of my practice over the last few years, through COVID especially, with my online blog, dissertation, and other writer projects going on at the same time, and I found it a good way to empty my thoughts, which was handy with all the research I'd rattled through during the lockdown. So in a way it was a blessing as well as a curse working from home during the pandemic, because the dissertation virtually wrote itself. It went on to win an award from Boom graduates, and when it was published, it now is held in collections at DJCAD, the University, DCA Dundee, Tate Britain and HMP Perth. Moving forward to now, my thoughts are on preparing for study, and as you can see from the image of my reading list, my work and my studies are very much intertwined. Which is ironic given that my lived experience of education, addiction, incarceration and recovery now appearing to be a niche market given the drug death crisis in Scotland. So now you know about my art and my studies, I suppose I should tell you about my work, and try to explain to you how it all fits together, hopefully. My work in the prison is as a lived experience peer support worker and I'm the first ex-prisoner in Scotland to be key trained. My areas of expertise, of course, are being addictions, prison and recovery, and now of course art, which is why I'm doing the art therapy classes. We're even hiring a new artist in residence after the last person was liberated on the prison to the rehab pathway. Anyways, my role is to provide support to those attending at the recovery hub, sharing my lived experiences, engaging with them in group sessions like Smart Recovery, and then progressing them to peer mentor training, recovery coaching with either the Scottish Recovery Consortium or Recovery Coaching Scotland, where participants can get recognised qualifications that can give them a help to find a job like mine's in the community upon release. So Pathways is more of like a 5-year plan, but as you can see, DJ Card at the top, I'm working my way down. We've been working with Hillcrest and been in the prison. The 3 organisations you can see for recovery coaching are the organisations I work with on a weekly basis. Fife College has a lot to do with the art therapy programme and the artist in residence programme. And then lastly, if I get through all this and after 5 years or however long it takes us to get through a PhD, if it goes that far, I'd like to set up a social enterprise that will be set up for raising funds to get art materials available to groups in the community and also in the prison.